A deep look into a family's struggle with addiction. Up next on Carpe Diem. Hello and welcome to Carpe Diem. I'm your host, Jacquie Moore. New Jersey's opioid epidemic is at an all-time high. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, in 2012, there were 38 deaths related to opioid overdose. Flash forward to 2017, and that number has increased to 1,376. Life with Layla is a new documentary that follows one New Jersey family caught up in the tough world of heroin addiction. The main subject of the film is 7-year-old Layla, who is well aware of her family's substance abuse, but hoping for a change. Joining with me now are two producers of Life with Layla, Spooner and Steve McCarthy. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So I just want to ask you, how did this documentary come to be, and how was it producing it? Steve, we'll start with you.
Well, Kenny and Mike, me, are two graduates of this program. I teach here, and they came up with this idea to do something about opioids about 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, we started shooting in 2015. And we actually stopped shooting maybe about 2 months ago, so it was a long process.
Wow, that is very long. So did you come to Steve and say, hey, you are my old professor, I have an idea for a project, or how did it work?
Well, I mean, Steve has been my mentor ever since I met him back in 2012. So we've had a professional student-teacher-like relationship since 2012 or 2013, I should say, and he has, he's taught me everything that I know when it comes to storytelling, shooting, filmmaking, lighting. He took me out of the classroom and he put a camera in my hands and taught me all of these things. So he's the reason why I'm able to shoot this, right?
Right.
So when it was time to shoot, I was like, Steve was the first guy. Steve, what do I do?
And how did you pick the subject? Like, how did you pick this topic?
Well, I actually lost a couple of friends to overdoses, so that was like the driving force in this whole thing. One thing that, I do know how to do is shoot. So I was like, let's pick up a camera, let's find a story, and let's tell the story, and let's do it the right way. And to do it the right way, it takes a long time, and these films take, 3 to 4 years to make, so. Of
course.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to find the subject of the family for this?
Well, actually, they have a friend. So Mike, me, the other director producer, there was a friend that the family knew and Mike knew, so they actually connected us together. It was a mutual thing. Yeah. So that's how we started.
Unfortunately, heroin deaths have skyrocketed in this state to where they're more than the national average by far. I think the figure is, in a 5-year period, while they were shooting this film, they went from 304 deaths to 1,000 deaths a year. So yeah, was it hard to find somebody? Yes, but no, too. There's a lot of people dying of heroin overdoses.
And the New Jersey opioid epidemic is crazy. I mean, I feel like if you talk to anyone, they'll be able to say, yes, we know someone who's struggling with addiction. So how did you guys, what did you want this film to be? What did you want people to take away?
Well, very often when you're doing a documentary, you tell a very small story about a very big thing, right? You hone in really close on it and get inside of it, but it's actually about something much bigger. And what that does is it tells the story to people in a way they understand, and then they get it. Then the bigger context of it, which is all these facts and figures, makes a lot of sense. You see how this family, from the way that these guys shot it and put it together, you see how this family ended up where they ended up.
Right.
It coincided with also this new drug that was created, opioids, and then distributed wildly. So, but it's just really, it's the best documentaries are just taking a very small thing and just really looking at it closely.
So Ken, how did you decide to, I guess, hone in on Layla as being the subject of this documentary?
Well, actually, Steve was like, that's your story right there.
Right.
But no, like she is, Layla is such a wise, smart young girl, and we actually first sat her down when she was 6.5 years old, and we started asking her questions. And some of her answers were, "Mommy doesn't like New Jersey because of drugs," and that was just, that really stuck out.
From such a
and she was 6.5 years old at that point, and now she, our last interview with her was at 10 was at 10 years old. So we basically watched her grow up through the lens of the camera. So, you know, it's very rare to have a 7-year-old that knows so much about what is going on, but she's in that world. She has no choice but to know.
And there's been a lot of films done about opioid abuse and heroin overdoses.
Yeah.
But what you're looking for when you want to do a film is an angle that hasn't been done before. So this was a great angle when these guys were showing me the dailies, the things they were shooting. And I was like, who is that girl? And what is she saying? And how did she know them? And I said, this is your angle. You know, because children also see things differently than we do, sometimes simpler, right? The eyes of a child.
Yeah.
So that's why the film becomes, I think, pretty powerful. And she is exceptional, too. She's a bit
great.
of a performer. Yeah.
She loves the camera. She's a ham.
Yeah.
But she's, you know, she's also funny, too. She's a really funny girl.
Yes.
You know, some of the stuff that comes out of her mouth, it's like, wait, what?
And was it difficult to film this, knowing that her family has been through so much and being that she's so young?
Well, what these guys did was her uncle Greg. So the film begins with her Aunt Melissa dying, and there's a sort of a drug awareness picnic in her honor. And then they go and meet Uncle Greg, and I went on that shoot with him. And Uncle Greg is a full-blown heroin addict who blames himself for his sister's death. So he begins to go on a binge, and these guys follow him for, what, 9 months, right? Mm-hmm. And he's blaming himself. He's blaming himself. He's also shooting up on camera in front of them. So they really put the time in. They were fearless about it. But also, too, what Ken is really great at, and Mike, are the relationships. And when you're making a film over a period of time with people like that, there has to be good relationships. And they're, you know, Ken's a natural at that. That's why he exceeded.
That's what you build over time filming it. I'm sure you build that relationship with the family and you become connected with them.
Yeah.
And I know you guys brought some clips today showing some parts of the documentary, and the first one is with Layla. So can you tell me a little bit about what we're going to see in this clip?
So the first clip is actually the first time that we meet the family. And it's 3 weeks after, actually it's probably about, it's about 3 weeks after the death of their aunt and sister. And you know, we sit down Layla on the hill, and we ask her a couple questions about her aunt. And this is some raw stuff. Like, this just happened. So.
Okay, let's take a look.
She talks about Melissa. She's angry. Like, she tells me to get over it and stop crying. It's like I feel like she's trying not to cry, so that's her way of expressing it.
So what happened to Aunt Melissa?
She overdosed. She got really sick, and she also choked on her own puke and died.
The day we told Leila about Melissa passing, we got a letter in the mail that was addressed to Leila from Melissa. And it says, Leila, I will have you playing and swimming at the beach in Florida as soon as I can. I love you to the stars in the sky, Leila. Always remember that. Love always, Aunt Melissa. She was very, very close with Melissa. Very, like those two were inseparable.
Do you miss her?
A lot.
Does your mom miss her?
Yeah. All my family misses her.
That's some powerful stuff right there. And Layla, to me, the first time I saw it, I said, she seems so much older than a 7-year-old. You know, her answers are so mature. So how was filming her during this situation?
Filming her was an eye-opening experience. It is always hard to work with kids, always, no matter what you do. It was easy to work with her. At certain points, there were some times, you know, she's a 7-year-old, so sometimes she'd get upset, she would have an attitude, but it's okay, you know. But overall, she was fantastic. She loves the camera. She was a ham. But there were times where she was funny on camera, and then there were other times where, you know, it was only you and her in a room, and she opened up, and those are the best moments in the film where she actually talked to you without anybody else there.
Right.
Well, one important thing is that Layla was never in danger. People should know this. Her mother was not an addict, and as far as we know, never was. So what's one of the first questions we get often is, was she in danger at all? And she never was.
No,
and that was really important to making this film, because you can't film a child that's in danger. You have to call the authorities. You know, you have to do the right thing, right? It makes sense. So that was one thing that was important.
Yeah.
She was never in danger.
And it seems like her mom is her support system through this whole thing. So how was filming her mom through it?
Yes, so Kate was fantastic. Like, she doesn't hide anything about drugs from anybody. Kate is super open, and she allowed us to bring the cameras into their life. She's the reason why we were able to make this film, because she kind of brought everyone together. She organized the interviews with the family members, because like they didn't really trust us at first, so we had to like gain that trust slowly and slowly. So Kate was the glue. She brought everything together for us. So she was really amazing to deal with.
Yeah. So, all the hardships that Layla has gone through, what do you think the future is looking like for her?
So bright. So bright. Layla is going to be a shooting star. She can accomplish anything. And when I say anything, like, I can see that girl being the president. She can be whatever she wants to be, and I'm really excited to see what's in her future for sure.
But addiction runs in families, so there is a concern about that. And I think that probably we will visit her in a few years and see how
Follow
she's
her
doing,
again.
because I think there's no scientific proof that it's hereditary. But I mean, think about
being
people you
surrounded
know.
by it.
Well, it's just too that it seems to run in families for whatever reason. They haven't identified a gene. They haven't identified anything like that yet. That doesn't mean that's not true. So we're concerned about that, and we'll probably keep in touch with them and possibly do a follow-up someday. You never know.
So tell me what you guys learned about the relationship between Melissa and Layla, and Melissa and the rest of the family.
They were close. Melissa was so close to Layla. And, to lose a family member at 6 years old, or 5 at the time maybe, that's tough. Right now I'm 29 years old, and I've never had a significant loss in my life, so I don't really know what that's like. But at 6 years old, she does. I can't even imagine it.
And tell me how Greg fits into this whole picture with his relationship with Melissa, etc.
So Greg, so we met Greg, and so the first time you meet Greg, we meet Greg. So we go into that hotel room, we sit him down, and he just got done shooting up, and we ask him about his sister, and he breaks down, and at that point in filming, we don't know why. So we spend the next 9 months trying to find out the answer to that question.
Gotcha. We're now going to see a clip with Layla's uncle Greg, who's battling a heroin addiction. We see him showing his reaction to when he was asked about his relationship with Melissa. Let's take a look.
What was your relationship like with Melissa?
I really don't. I really don't want to. I've been thinking about her more and more. I just don't want to bring that up. No, I don't want to talk about that. That's something that I haven't talked to really anything about yet. I haven't even got the full effect of that feeling yet, and I don't want to get into that. I'm sorry.
Do you think you can at least just kind of tell us what happened?
No, I just can't. Not at this moment. I just really can't. I haven't even really. That's something that I was hoping you guys weren't going to bring up, because that's something I don't want to talk about.
Wow. He's showing very powerful emotions here. So tell us more about what was happening during this moment of filming, Steve.
Well, Greg, I was on this shoot with them because they got the call to meet Greg in a hotel at Newark Airport.
Okay.
So the guys asked me to come with them. What had happened, and we didn't quite fully understand it, but we learned more, is that 3 weeks before, Melissa had died in a hotel room from an overdose. Greg was with her, and he blames himself for the death. I'm not going to give away any more than that. But later in the film, the arc comes back to that, and we find him dealing with that fact. So he blamed himself. It was his little sister, and he was with her, and he went out to get her some clothing and stuff like that, and he came back and she was dead. So
It's really sad.
yeah, it's very sad. It's very moving, but it's raw, and it's important that people know it's not just these numbers that we have in front of us that are increasing and everything else. It's affecting real families, real people, and scarring them for a long, long time. Why is this happening? We don't address that in the film at all because, again, we're just taking a small piece. But we hope that discussion starts about how did this happen. Just recently, a pharmaceutical executive was criminally charged for this up in upstate New York in Rochester. So this is the beginning of hopefully warning people who manufacture and distribute these things and prescribe these things that there's going to be a crackdown on them. I mean, it's been years in coming. I can't believe how long it's taken. The numbers are staggering, what's been happening in the last 5 years.
Right, because it starts with the pills, and then once they can't afford that anymore, they go on to heroin,
exactly.
which is the cheaper version and
Exactly.
much more dangerous.
In fact,
both are dangerous.
That's what happened with Melissa. She went to the dentist and got some Vicodin, which is not even an opioid, I don't think. But she got hooked on opioids, then painkillers, and then she moved to heroin. Yeah, exactly. It's a well-told story now, right?
Yeah.
Living in New Jersey, you know it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I feel like everyone, again, has someone who is affected by addiction or heroin, and it's really sad because it's how can we let that happen? But it does.
Yeah.
So this clip that we just showed, that was right after he was shooting up in a hotel, correct? So is that the most heartening part of the documentary, you would say? Or
no,
most eye-opening?
actually, there's, I'm not going to give a lot away, but the story takes us to Florida, and that's where the story takes a turn.
Okay.
And, that's when Greg tells us what happened. And, that moment was the most heartening for me. But also the fact of watching Layla grow up through this whole process was tough for me. But as a filmmaker, you have to try to stay objective as possible, and you just have to tell the story.
So was it difficult to film Greg because of his heroin addiction?
Absolutely, that was extremely difficult. But like I said before, Kate helped with all of that. So she helped organize the interviews and kind of like put us in touch at certain points.
And that's his sister, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Layla's mother.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what was Layla's relationship with Greg? Was it strong?
Yeah, I mean,
close. They're close.
It's a close family, actually. They get together as often as they can, and when you see them, there's scenes in the movie with both of her uncles. Her other uncle has an addiction issue as well. Wow. And there's a lot of warmth, family warmth between them and everything. It's kind of incongruous because here's a family struggling with addiction issues, but yet there is this warm family thing that they have going. It's true.
They are a family that comes together when the times get tough. They're like this, and some families are not like that, but they are. Like they really, they're a family that just supports each other and really helps each other out when times get tough. So.
And they're not living on the street or anything. They have jobs. They're roofing jobs, a fisherman, commercial fisherman. Mom works in a hotel. Dad's a bartender. And the parents of these folks, or Layla's grandparents, they also have addiction issues too. Father used crack, and the mother was an alcoholic. So again, it runs in families, right? But again, they're not living on the street. They're working class New Jersey people who are struggling with this.
And they're also very nice people too. They are wonderful, wonderful people.
It's almost like you wouldn't know by just looking at them. You have to dig deeper.
You would have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So was it difficult to film some of the things, from an ethical standpoint, being that, shooting up is illegal, and some of the things in the film are just raw. So was that hard?
Yeah, that was definitely hard to be in the hotel room with Greg shooting up. So when that happened, I had to tell him or have him say to the camera, "You are not shooting up for the film. You're shooting up because this is what you're doing, and it's not for the project or anything like that. Like you really have to cover your bases with that because it is illegal to buy and sell drugs." But that was very tough for me to watch because there is a moral like a moral and ethical thing there, and you really have to be careful because you can get in a lot of trouble with that kind of stuff when you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, we talked about the ethics of filming this piece all the time. You know, there was a constant thing. My experience with network television news came in handy. These guys are also smart guys. A lot of it's common sense. You do the right thing. Don't ask anybody to do anything. Don't provide any money. You are the observer. You are the journalist. You know, keep it pure. And they're willing to tell their story, so you get their story. But we always guarded the ethical component of this very carefully.
Now, does that put Greg at risk because he is doing something illegal on camera? Does it put him at a risk because, you know?
I don't think
He had
so.
bigger problems than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time he was a fugitive when he shot, so he was wanted by the law. But that's not our concern. Our concern is to tell a story. Now, again, going back to Layla, if someone's going to get hurt and you let that happen, that's an ethical issue right there, particularly a child. So there are ethical issues, but if the person's an adult and they're making this decision and you're not helping them in any way, you're simply filming it, it's ethically okay to do it.
Gotcha. Now, I feel like Layla was such a big part of the documentary, and taking, you know, her piece of it, how does she fit into like the whole addiction part of the story?
Well, she is 6 years old and she is growing up in this world. So that alone is your answer right there. Like, she is a part of this family. She is seeing it firsthand, and she knows, and she repeats things that she hears and that she sees, you know. She's a big part of the story because she knows exactly what she's talking about. And, you know, she might not know what certain words are, but she still hears them. That's still part of being raised in that environment.
Yeah, definitely. And what did your relationship develop with Layla over the time that you were making this documentary? Because you followed her for years.
I mean, you know, you're supposed to keep, you know, you're supposed to not, you know, be friends with your subjects. Layla is wonderful. Like, I'm always going to be friends with her. I'll try my best to help her in life. She's absolutely wonderful. So I have a very strong friendship with her now, and that will last a lifetime.
And like you guys said, you were planning on going back to film her in a few years just to see where she ends up. When are you guys planning on doing that, if that's in the works?
High school graduation.
I guess, yeah, or somewhere in high school. There's a very famous British series called 7 Up. They went every 7 years, and they began with babies, and they went like 50 years or something. So there are models out there on how to do this. It's been done before, and there's a couple of my films that I go back to people on actually in my life, because the change of time is a very interesting subject thing, and this is why this film worked too. It's a chronological telling of this 9 months of this Uncle Greg when he's on the run from the law using heroin, but again told through Layla's sort of viewpoint.
Her eyes.
Yeah,
Yes.
kind of. So you know, time is a good story device.
Of course. So where can we view this film?
We have some people interested in distributing it on television right now, but we don't know where it's going to go. You know, going to a film festival, one of the reasons is you want to get it seen, you want to get some buzz, you want to sell the film. So we put in a lot of work, many years on this, and we would like to sell it to somebody. And right now, it's the golden age of documentaries. So it's a good time to have content to sell right now.
What do you hope that people take away from this film, Ken?
I hope, you know, that people see that there is hope when you're struggling with substance abuse. Like, you can get help, and there are some resources out there. There are a lot of things that, you know, you're able to do to get that help, and we really want to show people that for sure.
And Steve?
Yeah, part of the arc of the story is Greg seeking help and getting help, and I think that's the message of it, if anything else. The other message too is that just because you're an addict doesn't mean you're a bad person. Yeah. It's a problem generally tied to some form of mental illness as well. So it's easy for us to judge these people and look down on them and everything. That's not right. That will not help them. That will not help us. So the point of the film is for us to understand that these are regular people. They have jobs, they work, they contribute to society. They're just struggling mentally with an addiction issue. Right. And that's really the point of the film, that they're not bad people.
So, Ken, what is next for you guys as producers?
Well, the next thing for me, there's so many things going on right now. I am passionate about a few topics. I have a few scripts written for narrative films because, you know, that's where I would like, you know, to go one day. But he taught me how to shoot documentaries, so I could see myself staying in this world for a long time as well. So we'll see.
Well, we work together now.
Yeah.
So I have 2 documentaries I'm developing, and another project for public broadcasting that I'm looking at that Ken will work with me on for sure, as my producing partner, as a shooting partner. Yeah, things are happening.
Right, and documentaries like these particular who follow, you know, families in struggle, why are they so important?
Well, it's real. Like, it's real. It's going on. It's happening. Like, you know, this film that we shot, it's very raw, and we're shooting something as the story is unfolding. You know, so you know, it's really important for people to see that it's happening, and kids are dying every single day.
And documentaries are the new long-form journalism now. News magazines aren't as proficient. You guys probably don't read newspapers or news magazines. So these subjects are being covered now. Podcast is another form too, right. Which is essentially a documentary with audio. Yeah. So documentaries are the new long-form journalism. So these kind of issues will be covered in depth with documentaries. It's a very, very hot market for it right now. A lot of the streaming services are buying. The traditional networks are buying. It's really a great place for students to look at if you want to tell stories long form, if you want to dive into subjects. I wouldn't advise students that they're going to make any money doing this. So I've been making documentaries for a while, but it's important work, important subjects, and it's challenging, and it's fun. And it really helps to hone your skills to do all kinds of other things.
And I just want to thank you guys so much for being here
Thank you.
and shedding light on such an important topic and sharing Layla with the world, and we can't wait to see that. If you would like more information about this or any other edition of Carpe Diem, you can write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. For Carpe Diem, I'm Jacquie Moore. Thanks for watching.